Welcome back to the deep dive. Now, before we even get into the meat of this, I need you to do something for me. Just take 1 second right now, look at your screen, and hit that like button and hit subscribe. It helps the show more than you know. And honestly, for today's topic, you are going to want to be locked in. We are touching on stuff the algorithm doesn't exactly love.
That is probably an understatement. This isn't your standard self-help deep dive.
No, it is not. We are diving into a book that frames itself as, well, a manifesto for the modern man. It's called Cryotherapy. Ice Baths, Massage, and Cold Showers by Conrad Riker just came out in 2025. Now, looking at that title, you might think, okay, a health guide, inflammation, recovery.
And you would be dead wrong. I mean, if you buy this book thinking you're getting some gentle guide to wellness, you are in for a serious shock. Riker isn't really writing about health, he's writing about warfare.
Exactly. This is a red pill wrapped in a layer of ice.
The central thesis here is that comfort is a trap. Riker argues that our entire society has been feminized to the point where male biology is treated not just as an inconvenience, but as a defect. If you've ever felt like the modern world is, and he puts it this way, an emotional kindergarten, then this deep dive is specifically for you.
Oh, it's explicitly targeting that audience. The manosphere, men's rights activists, anyone who looks at the current state of safetyism and just thinks, we have completely lost the plot.
And look, we're going to break down the history, the science, the sociology, but we can only scratch the surface of how deep this goes. If you want the full experience, and you really should, you need to buy this ebook. It's available right now on Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books. Go get it. But for now, let's unpack this. Riker starts with a concept he calls the comfort delusion.
Right. And this is the foundation of his entire cultural critique. He argues that we become addicted to what he calls thermal neutrality. We've outsourced our resilience to thermostats. He opens with his incredible anecdote that just sets the tone perfectly. He describes watching a man in a Whole Foods parking lot in Boulder, Colorado.
Ah, the epicenter of modern wellness culture.
Exactly. So this guy, he's decked out in Lululemon. He's drinking a $9 oat milk latte, and he is screaming, literally screaming inside his Tesla. Because the heated seats didn't turn on fast enough.
Wow, okay. That's it. That's the epitome of what Riker calls thermal entitlement.
Thermal entitlement. That phrase really stuck with me.
It's the belief that, 72 degrees is a basic human right. Riker says this guy wasn't mad about the cold. He was mad that his little bubble of comfort was breached.
Yeah.
It's a sign of a broken regulatory system. And he uses that to pivot to this huge societal critique. He claims this isn't an accident. He calls it a gynocentric shift.
And this is where it gets fascinating, and I mean, pretty controversial. Riker traces this softening back to the 1970s. He points specifically to Betty Friedan and the feminine mystique.
Right. And usually when we talk about Friedan, it's in the context of women's liberation. But Riker he flips that. He argues that Friedan didn't just critique the housewife life. She inadvertently launched a cultural coup.
Cultural coup. That is strong language.
It is, but follow his logic. He argues that by framing female dissatisfaction as a moral emergency, society pivoted. The highest moral good became emotional comfort and safety. And those old masculine virtues, duty, sacrifice, stoicism, physical hardship, those got rebranded.
Rebranded as what? Toxic, oppressive.
Exactly. And in their place, we got what he calls a thermal monoculture. We built a world designed to never startle us, never freeze us, and never challenge us.
He actually tries to measure this, right? The thermal softness in there.
TSI, yeah. It measures a society's addiction to HVAC, heated seats, all of it. And Riker brings the data. He claims that a higher TSI correlates directly with lower testosterone, higher cortisol, and skyrocketing depression rates in men.
So effectively, the warmer and more comfortable we get, the sadder and weaker we get.
Precisely. He argues that the left, and specifically corporate HR departments, have declared a war on biology. They've pathologized strength and replaced it with inclusion and safetyism. He has this great line. Go back to your lavender-scented meditation app. This book is for men.
It's so intense. He's basically saying that wellness is just a code word for making men compliant.
Compliant and weak. He calls it the great softening. But this isn't just about, feeling tough. He pivots really hard into the biology of it. He calls the cold the vascular forge.
Let's get into that science, because Riker claims that cold isn't just about recovery, it's about chemical command.
Right. If you strip away the culture war aspect for a second, the physiology he presents it's staggering. He cites a Jones study from 2022 that showed a 530% surge in norepinephrine after acute cold exposure.
530%.
Yes. And we need to be clear about what norepinephrine is. People confuse it with adrenaline, which is just that fight or flight panic energy. Norepinephrine is the chemical of command. It provides focus, aggression, clarity. It is the anti-anxiety drug that your body produces naturally, but only if you stress it.
So we're walking around depressed and anxious because we're living in this comfortable stupor,
Yeah.
denying our brains the very chemistry they need to function.
That is the thesis, and it connects directly to what he calls the inflation illusion. We are obsessed with reducing inflammation. I mean, how many ads do you see for anti-inflammatory diets, pills,
Well,
supplements?
it's a billion-dollar industry, at least.
And Riker calls that the recovery lie. He argues the whole wellness industry, the foam rollers, the CBD gummies, the soft massages, they're placebo-grade interventions.
Yeah.
He says that by constantly suppressing inflammation with meds or just comfort, men are actually castrating their own biological potential.
Because inflammation is the signal for growth.
Exactly. You need the spike to get the adaptation. He points to Finnish athletes who use contrast therapy, fire and ice, to boost growth hormone by 500%. But modern men, we've lost our brown adipose tissue, or BAT.
I have heard of this. It's the fat that burns fat, right? The good fat.
Correct. It's metabolic gold. Babies have it to stay warm. But Riker points out that modern men have almost none of it because we live in a thermal monoculture. We never get cold enough to activate it. We are physiologically dormant.
So we're walking around with dormant biology, relying on what he calls lavender-scented wellness to fix problems that only the vascular forge can solve. That is a powerful image. But I want to go back to the conspiracy element, I guess, or the historical analysis, because this is where the book really hooks you. Riker suggests that this removal of cold, this removal of hardship, isn't just a byproduct of technology. He says it was institutional.
This is the capture of institutions segment of the book. And if you're interested in how systems control behavior, this is the most critical part. He goes all the way back to 1910 and the Flexner Report.
The Flexner Report. That's a deep cut. What is it?
Well, in 1910, a man named Abraham Flexner was commissioned to evaluate medical schools in North America. Based on his recommendations, they shut down a huge number of them. But Riker points out which ones were targeted. It was specifically the schools that focused on non-pharmaceutical treatments, like hydrotherapy and naturopathy.
So, because cold water is free and you can't patent an ice cube, they just buried it.
That is the argument. This was the birth of the medical industrial complex. If you can't bottle it and sell it, it's quackery.
It reminds me of that story he tells about Dr. Ivans Foster.
Dr. Foster, 1948. Riker claims Foster wrote a book called Cold as Cure, which allegedly showed extremely high recovery rates for tuberculosis using cold exposure protocols. Riker claims this book was systematically removed from libraries.
Deleted from the record.
Silenced is the word he uses. Because if every man could cure himself with cold water and discipline, who needs the pharmaceutical industry? Who needs the therapeutics of the state? It's a dangerous idea that health is about autarky. Self-sufficiency.
And he traces this right up to the modern education system. This part really got me. The connection to Title IX.
It's a very controversial take, but Riker argues that Title IX metastasized. It started as gender equity, which sounds fine on paper, but he says it turned into the eradication of male rites of passage. He talks about how schools used to have rope climbs, cold plunges, outdoor endurance tests.
The things that actually tested you.
Oh, great, and now they're gone. He argues they weren't removed because they were dangerous. They were removed because the variance in performance between the sexes was too visible. He calls it leveling down. And he shares this specific story about a Swedish school incident involving a swimmer named Elias Mortensen.
This story made my blood boil a little bit, I have to admit. Tell us about Elias.
So Elias is a high school swimmer. He's serious about his training. He's doing old plunges as part of his recovery standard stuff for an athlete. But the school bans him from doing it, not because it's dangerous, but because a female classmate filed a complaint saying she felt emotionally unsafe watching boys suffer.
She felt unsafe watching him endure cold water.
Yes. The mere sight of male hardship was considered a threat to her emotional comfort, and the school administration sided with her.
Of course they did.
They called it a gynocentric thermal retreat. The logic is, if it makes a woman uncomfortable to witness male hardship, then the hardship itself must be eliminated.
That is the emotional kindergarten he's talking about. We're banning snowball fights, we're heating gyms to 72 degrees, all to protect a specific type of emotional comfort.
And Riker argues this just. It destroys men. He says men need the stoic circuit.
Let's talk about that, the psychology of the unchained man. Because he says cold isn't just physical, it's a neurochemical coup.
He argues that the brain has a specific circuitry for resilience, specifically in the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, that only activates under acute physical stress. He calls it the stoic circuit. You cannot activate this by talking about your feelings. You can't activate it with talk therapy. You have to shock the system.
He shares the story of James from Austin. I think a lot of our listeners will relate to James.
Oh, James is the archetype of the modern drifter. Vaping, burnt out, stuck in a dead-end job, bad relationship with his dad. He starts doing the ice baths, and Riker talks about the discipline gradient. The idea is that willpower functions like electricity. It transfers.
So by forcing himself into the ice every day, James fixed the other parts of his life.
Exactly. He stopped vaping. He eventually repaired the relationship with his father, not because he went to counseling, but because the discipline of the ice rewired his brain against what Riker calls emotional narcissism.
That is such a key phrase, emotional narcissism. The idea that our personal feelings are the most important thing in the entire world, Riker is saying. Your feelings don't matter to the ice.
The cold doesn't care about your pronouns. That's the vibe. It forces objectivity. You either endure or you get out. There is no negotiation.
And then there's the social aspect. This was hilarious, but also kind of true. The red pill cold movement. He mentions a Stanford study about social signaling.
Right. The study found that men who post about cold exposure are rated 37% more competent by their peers.
37%. Just for freezing yourself.
It signals genetic fitness. It's the handicap principle. In a world that is soft, in a world that is lavender scented, showing that you can voluntarily endure pain signals that you are undeniable. It signals that you have surplus energy.
And Riker quotes this internet comment that he says perfectly encapsulates the whole movement. Cold is the new cock.
Yeah, it's blunt. Cold is the new cock. But he treats it seriously. It's an evolutionary signal. It signals that you are dangerous in a way that modern society is actively trying to suppress.
But he makes a really important distinction, doesn't he? Between the guys going to the fancy spas in Soho and the real deal.
Yes. This is the difference between thermal capitalism and the cold underground. Thermal capitalism is paying $98 to stand in a cryo chamber in San Francisco while you sip a green juice. Riker hates that. He says that's just buying a virtue signal. It's consumerism masquerading as toughness.
The cold underground is the chest freezer in the garage.
Correct. It's the men using industrial freezers, sealing them with silicone, filling them with a garden hose, or the guys breaking ice in a local creek. Riker argues this is the true rebellion against the comfort cult. It's unbranded, it's gritty, and it's about autarky, self-sufficiency.
The state fears cold men because cold men are autarkic. They don't beg, they don't break. That is the quote that really stuck with me.
It's a profound thought. If you don't need comfort, you are very, very hard to control. If you don't need the state to keep you warm, or the pharmaceutical industry to keep you pain-free, or the HR department to keep you emotionally safe, you become a variable that the system just can't account for.
It's anti-fragile armor.
Exactly. Riker presents cryotherapy, ice baths, massage, and cold showers, not just as a guide to getting healthy, but as a manual for opting out of a declining civilization.
It really frames the simple act of taking a cold shower as an act of civil disobedience, a rebellion against the warm bath of modern complacency.
And that's the question he leaves the reader with. Are you ready to reject the warmth? Are you ready to be uncomfortable? Because if you are, the biology, the history, and the psychology are all on your side.
This has been an absolute trip. I know some of you are listening to this thinking, I need to get in freezer right now. And honestly, you probably should.
It changes everything. It changes your morning. It changes your mindset. It really does.
Look, we've covered the key pillars. The comfort delusion, the vascular forge, the suppression of history in the Flexner Report, and the rise of the cold underground. But there's so much more in the book. The specific protocols, the deeper history of Dr. Foster, the full breakdown of what he calls the feminization fallacy. We barely touched on the specific temperature gradients he recommends.
We really only gave you the highlight reel. The curriculum of the cold in the book is extensive. If you are serious about this, you can't just wing it.
So if you are ready to stop being an NPC in your own life, you need to get the book. Go to Amazon Kindle, go to Google Play Books, search for Cryotherapy, Ice Baths, Massage, and Cold Showers by Conrad Riker. Buy it, read it, do it.
And if you want to keep up with Riker's ongoing war against the comfort cult, you absolutely need to follow him. He's on Substack at Conrad Riker. That is where the really incisive, cutting-edge content is coming out.
At Conrad Riker on Substack.
Yeah.
Check it out.
And before you turn this off, before you go jump in that cold shower, make sure you have liked and subscribed to The Deep Dive. We are here to bring you the knowledge that the algorithm might not want you to find.
Stay cold.
We'll see you in the next one.